We're live. There we go. You can say hi.
Hi, this is my first podcast.
First Facebook Live.
Well, I've done. I think yesterday. I think I was doing a Facebook Live.
Okay.
So they were streaming something at Filmgate.
All right.
Something tied in with art and culture.
Well, you're my 26th episode of Inquiring.
Okay.
So here we go. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alex Vidal of Related ISG International Realty, and I am coming to you live. I happen to be host of the show you're watching too, Inquiring Minds Want to Know. And I am coming to you live from one of the coolest spots that I've seen ever since I grew up in Miami, the Vagabond Hotel. And to my right is the owner of the Vagabond Hotel, Avra Jain. Avra, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Welcome to, this is Brigitte. The room we're in now is Brigitte. It's part of the Vagabond Hotel. It's our new little kind of billiard room. So that Amir set up for us.
When we're done, we'll grab the camera off the tripod. And
we'll if you're wondering about this fabulous space.
It's really cool. And I grew up, I went to school right up the street at Curly, so I'm very familiar with this area. Actually, that land just sold for like $60 million.
For another school, which sounds like a good idea.
I would think so. But you've done a lot, but we're going to get to that. And if you don't know who Avra is, the Biscayne Boulevard is and is becoming what it is because of her. But before we get started, if you like today's episode, we're going to talk about Miami real estate. We're going to talk about becoming a woman power player for you women viewers. We've got a bunch of stuff. If you like today's episode, please click the like button, click the love button, share the video, comment below as we're going, ask your questions, we'll get them answered. But you ready? 10, 15 minutes?
Let's do it.
All right, now, she's got a cool background. So you're an identical twin, right?
Yeah, not everybody knows that.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I read up on you, and I told you I have 8-year-old twins. You've lived in, 3-4 states?
Yeah, across the hand.
There's Texas, right? Illinois.
Born in California, 2 years in Texas where my dad was going to get to school, Texas Tech. Midwest, most of my life, junior high, high school, college at Purdue University in Indiana. Then New York City, 1983 to 1999 with a stint in London, and Miami since 2000.
Wow. Well, let's talk. So we talked about that. She's also a college athlete. What sport did you play?
Tennis.
Tennis?
I went to college.
And your
sister benefited from Title IX.
And your sister played too, right?
We were a doubles team.
Doubles team with her identical twin sister in college. You're on Wall Street, and now you're one of Miami's most prominent developers. Tell us a little bit about your path to how we ended up today at the Vagabond Hotel.
So I graduated from college with an engineering degree. Went to New York City. I worked on Wall Street. Strong math background, went hand in hand, and as a hobby, I was doing my own apartments when I was living there. Okay. So I would, take my money and I started with a studio apartment in the West Village, and then a small loft in Soho, and then a bigger loft in Soho, and then and then finally, 2 lofts became half a building, and then when I went to do a full building, the guys that I work with on Wall Street, Goldman Sachs guys, they were like, "Hey, Avra, we want to play too," and so I teamed up with Paul Jacobson, and we did our first 100,000 square foot loft conversion in Tribeca, warehouse to residential, and at that point, and then I never went back.
What brought you down to South Florida?
I was dating somebody,
okay,
and I had been coming down to Florida since the middle 80s, 1985, 87, when it was just Century Hotel, which was owned by the Manipulator magazine guys. I'm really going to date myself here. But a lot of my friends were in fashion and photographers and models and stuff. So I've been coming down here when it was still, production companies, and the senior living was all on Ocean Drive, and actually really enjoyed that sort of juxtaposition. Mm-hmm. And so, eventually I was dating somebody, and they were down here and living on the Venetian Islands, and I was like, okay. And so I started driving by the Performing Arts Center, or the future Performing Arts Center, and I was like, wow, so they're going to build a Performing Arts Center here, and I knew what that had done to this New York City or New Jersey, and I started poking around, and then within a few months I was living here, and 3 months later I assembled 4 city blocks around the Performing Arts Center. And
4 city blocks?
Around the Performing Arts Center.
How hard would it be to do that today?
Assemblage is a special, there's a special skill set to that, right, I would say. But I have done it recently. I in Little River, was assembled like 60 parcels in 2 years.
Look at you, good job.
So, there's a little bit of a method to the madness.
Sure.
But you have to be where other people aren't inclined to be.
Sure.
So where people.
The hole in the donut, which we're going to talk about.
The hole in the donut, or just I think I'm one of those. I'm really boots on the ground. You'll see my shoes are pretty dirty from a job site. So I'm about feel and identify an area that I think feels right. It's a mixture of things: location, who's there, zoning, and what are the interests of the community. I never try to make something fit. It kind of either is or isn't, which is why Biscayne Boulevard worked, right? This used to be Main Street. Sure. So the Vagabond Hotel, this was about bringing back something that was.
That's right. Didn't Frank Sinatra and all that stay here too?
They up and down the boulevard. There's actually a really good show. Motel Stories is playing on the boulevard. There's immersive theater right now, open this weekend through December 23rd at Motel Blue, which is going to be the Gold Dust. That's my next historic preservation project, and they actually tell the stories of Biscayne Boulevard, when the Playboy Club was here and all the things from the 50s to present. So if you really want to learn about, the CIA used to be up the block, all these fun things. So this is a very lively story, and it was very diverse always, because if you couldn't stay at the Eden Rock or the Fountain Blue, you would have stayed on Biscayne Boulevard or 79th Street. It's a working class neighborhood, and so very diverse history. Kind of ties into Lemon City, Little Haiti, all these things. So, but this was a fabulous street with fabulous architecture, and with a lot of great new neon signs, and we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back.
Now let's go about, because you faced a lot of challenges throughout your life, and you play in a man's world, and not only are you playing, you're dominating in the commercial real estate world. Talk to me a little bit about the systems that you have in place to deal with the stresses and the challenges and all that. Do you have anything in place? Do you meditate? Do you, journal? Do you?
Well, first of all, I love what I do. I think that's the big thing.
Sure,
right? So
absolutely.
Love what I do. I do work 6 days a week. My guys are working. I'm going to the job site. I work late hours. I don't think of it as work. So I guess, and I can't help myself. I'm always rubbernecking, that building looks like, even when I go
You're always dreaming.
City, it's almost like I can't help myself. Yeah. And so I'd say, in terms of processes in place, I think, one, you have to believe in what you're doing. I think I'm always aware. I don't decide. The market kind of tells you, or the community tells you. You have to be, I think, a really good listener. So we're trying to fill a need or a want that's in the marketplace. I think it's a mistake for developers to try to decide what the market wants, right? And,
which most developers do.
Well, I think they kind of know. I think you want it. So in the commercial real estate, chances are, if I'm going to a new neighborhood to do something, or I'm in an existing neighborhood, it's because the market kind of told me to do that already. Sometimes I'm in what I call the refugee business, right? So people are getting pushed out of Wynwood. I'll get phone calls, and I'll be like, okay, well, where does everybody want to be? What do you want to do? Because it's usually communities that want to stay together. And then I like to think I'm being part of the problem solving. Sure. So, so we try to fill those gaps. Okay. I think that's the other, process in place for us, at least, is that it's we think we're having impact, and we're kind of doing good work.
Well, you feel like you're a part of something bigger than just you, right?
Yeah, bigger than us. We don't buy buildings, we buy neighborhoods, and we do a lot in affordable housing. Right now, I think I probably spend at least 30, maybe 1/3 of my time in non-for-profit work. I don't
really?
I think that's, and it's not things you talk about, it's just things you do. Sure. So we are very committed to trying to come up with innovative solutions for affordable housing, working with commissioners and working with the county and the CRAs, and thankfully these are people that come to us, and if we're happy to be part of solutions, whether it doesn't have to be financially driven, and I think that's part of our process that makes us more in touch with the community, certainly puts us in touch with the powers that be, which I think is important, what's their agenda, and then also makes us feel good about what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I love it.
So historic preservation really is a public benefit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Now, looking back, you've been around a long time. Was there a breakthrough moment that you can look back and say, man, that moment, I talk about it all the time, or that's a moment that I look back that just really changed my trajectory in my life? And what could our viewers learn about that?
No, it's just, just a moment.
We didn't prep her for the questions.
Yes, it's just a moment. So I'm trying to think, well, I know what mattered in Miami. I think Vagabond was a moment. It was a moment for the district. It was a moment for the city. It was a moment for me in that, I was drawn to the property because of the architecture.
Sure.
And
you never changed the sign or the look of the sign.
You can't.
Oh, you can't? Interesting.
In fact, you're supposed to restore it back to what it was. And we were very true to the postcards. This was a property that was well documented. Okay. So we had a lot of good references, as is Motel Blue, which is going to be the future Gold Dust. We had good references, matched the postcard. But I think what I underestimated here was sort of the emotional impact of these properties, because when you do, especially like hotels where people come and they stay, you house memories. Mm-hmm. It's not like, I do a lot of adaptive reuse in warehouses and stuff, but that's a little different. And in the end, I've gotten to appreciate the benefit of storytelling and what that means to a community, what that means to the hotel, what that means to our brand. So I think understanding the emotional impact of this property, people come up and they go to the pool and they're like, oh, I did a staycation here, and almost, choked up, and they're like, and there's the mermaid at the bottom of the pool where I learned how to swim.
Interesting.
I know when I first bought the hotel, I had a meeting with ex-mayor Manny Diaz, and because we stay in touch, and I was like, he was like, Avra, when we came over on the Cuban boats, we didn't have a lot of money, 4 families to an apartment. On the weekends for entertainment, they would drive up and down the block in their cars looking at the neon signs. Really? That was their entertainment. So we were deciding between LED and neon at the time, because, LED's a little more sustainable. Mm-hmm. And then we were like, well, we have to do neon. And so, I came here, they come to the bar, this is where I had my honeymoon.
It's a great restaurant, by the way. We've been here a few times.
Yeah, and by the way, I was a virgin, a little too much information.
That's okay. It's pretty appropriate in this room.
So I was just like, I think, feeling the connection to the past is important, and I think it sort of validates what we are sort of going forward. Mm-hmm. And at the same time making it relevant. We don't build house museums. We're not trying to get people to come and just walk around. Look, we try to get people to come experience and create new stories going forward. Yeah. So I think that for me was sort of an interesting moment.
Sure. Now, we talked about the hole in the donut before, so I'm going to look at my questions. I want to make sure I get this right, because I personally am a fan of hole in the donuts. If I can find a hole in the donut, that's what actually, the show started because of a hole in the donut. I figured, do it live. Nobody's doing it live. Right. Keep it short, because everybody does them an hour long. Right. And here we are going on number 26. But I love that almost everything that you do is the hole in the donut. The Mimo district, like where we are right now, Overtown, Hialeah, etc. What is it about those areas that you love so much? Because that's your specialty. You're not in Brickell. You're not in downtown. You're not in Aventura.
No. But I was in around the Performing Arts Center, right? I certainly have done luxury, and then I was in Wynwood, not there now, and I'm in Midtown. It was a hole in the donut. It's not anymore. So
I remember when I went to Curly, where Midtown is now. We would get up, to come down 2nd Avenue, you'd go through the Design District, which is amazing now. You wouldn't be caught there at night back in the day. And that used to be where they would store the train cars. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
It wasn't that long ago. And thanks to the commissioners at the time, I think it was Winton and the mayor, they saw that the vision, that the need of a new urban neighborhood. I think that's what makes Miami so interesting is that you can come here, be a small developer like myself, and actually have impact. You have right ideas, software, and it's a platform not just for developers, but a platform for new businesses, young businesses. Sure. We're the #1 entrepreneurial city in the country. Okay. Yeah, we don't decide that. Forbes or somebody decided that. So when you think about that, well, why? It is a platform. It is. I know people talk about Miami not being an affordability or whatever, but on a dollar basis, it is. Yeah, for sure. 1-bedroom apartment here is. You can get a nice one here in this neighborhood for $1,100.
Ex-Miami, you can get one for under $2,000 at the project we represent. Brand new with super amenities.
Right, and then by the way, you can be in Little Havana or up here for $1,100 a month, nice 1-bedroom. In New York City, doesn't even get you a closet. That gets you a storage space. So when we talk about affordability, on the real estate side, I think it's more on the job side. So, that's what makes things affordable is people have better jobs. I think people are trying to do that in some of their projects, whether it's Innovation District or whether it's, I think entrepreneurship, Knight Foundation, all these things. That is a really good story that's happening in Miami. And I think that's what's going to make Miami more affordable.
So going back, so I don't want to lose off the question. The hole in the donut is because that's where you make the biggest impact. You can make it in the hole in the donut versus.
But the hole in the donut is driven by everything else that's happening. So I'm drawn to the hole in the donut again because of the arts and culture needing space, entrepreneurs needing space, affordable housing needing space. So when I go in search as a whole, I'm in search of,
like you said, like the refugee development.
Yeah, and what can I find, and then is there enough of it where I can influence sort of look and feel and mindfulness.
Now you've touched upon Miami and being the number one entrepreneurial city and all that. So this is my next question. Go right into it. When you're talking to an investor that maybe is not from Miami, or a client or a potential buyer, whatever, what's something that you include in your elevator pitch? Because what I'm finding with the realtors that are watching this is we're in an interesting point in our life right now, in Miami's life, that they're having a hard time describing exactly what Miami is.
Right.
If you ask, and I ask almost every guest, what age would you give Miami? Most of them are saying 30 and under. Alicia Severa, Mayor Francis Suarez, Kieran Bowers from Swire, Nitin, and I asked them.
All fabulous people, by the way.
My
friends. We all play in the same sandbox.
Exactly. Great people, amazing people that actually took the time, and thank you to you as well. But they're all saying it. Dora Parif, we talked about, it's we're in puberty, or we're in our 20s, or we're in our 30s. So people are having a hard time talking about where Miami is right now. So what's one thing you include in your pitch? And then we'll answer the age question. What age do you think Miami is?
So, listen, lifestyle, right? We're all here for the same reason, the lifestyle. I mean, you just, every day is a sunny day. I mean, we live where people come on vacation. Yeah. So imagine that we can work and play where everybody wants vacation. Lifestyle is like no other city that I can think of.
Okay.
So that's the big one. The other is opportunity, the fact that it is a young platform. You can be an entrepreneur. Imagine you want to open up a little restaurant or have a good idea. What would it cost you to do here versus somewhere else?
Okay.
And it's an international city, so you have eyeballs everywhere. Mm-hmm. Arts and culture, for as small a city as we are, are we a city or a big town? I'm not really sure. It's
exactly. That's
part of the DNA. We have things like arts and public spaces and things. I think people are accessible. Like before you were here, I had a representative from the commissioner's office, and we were talking about MIMO and things we can do. I mean, that accessibility is important. And you're in another city. Can you call up the mayor? Can you call up your commissioner? So I like the accessibility. So I think those are all things that make Miami very positive as a developer.
Yeah.
Opportunity zone, new, throw it out there. Everybody can read up on it. The Treasury's got a lot of words up, it has a lot of stuff out on it.
Google that, opportunity
zone. I'm being asked a lot about it from outside investors. I think that's a big part of the new elevator pitch.
Okay.
Our opportunity zones, which are driven by census tract, happen to be very close to core. Like there's no opportunity zones in New York City. Yeah. But in Miami, there's opportunity zones.
Interesting.
That are very close to core, which is really sort of federal tax incentives to encourage transitional neighborhoods or new ideas from happening with a lot of incentives. So I'd say that Miami's really primed for that. I know I'm getting a lot of phone calls on that. So I think I'm back to opportunity,
okay.
I think accessibility.
So would you say Miami's what age would you give Miami?
Yeah, I think it's good to be young.
Okay. No, I love being young.
Because we get to learn from all the other cities, best practices, but also, urban planning, things like that. You go to London, you can't change the streets, guys.
Yeah.
In Miami we can,
okay.
And I think the building department's trying to be thoughtful about that. They see that as an opportunity. So I think that being young is good, which is why we need to keep as
what
much
age would you give? Would you say we're in our 20s? Would you say in our 30s? Puberty?
I wouldn't say puberty. That doesn't sound
okay.
too good. What's fun? I think,
late
20s. Yeah, there we go.
Actually, I'm having more fun now at 40 than I've had in my entire life.
By the way, 40s are the best. And I can tell you 50s are not so bad.
You're in your 50s?
No, I'm in my 50s. So,
wow.
By the way, I always kind of own that because people go, well, they say, well, Avra, you've done all these things. Well, how? They try to do the math, and they're like, well, how could you have done all that? And then when I tell them my age, then they're like, oh, okay, now that makes sense. But I think late 20s is kind of fun. Late 20s, early 30s.
There you go. Another person in the 20s and in the 30s. It's funny. I tell people I've been in real estate 21 years, and I had my son at 19. So I tell people, well, what happened? I'm like, I had my son at 19. Like, oh, okay, but you're so young. 21 years. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Talk to me about becoming a woman power player. We have a lot of women that watch the show, and when I have an opportunity to interview a powerful woman, I always ask them, because I'm all about that, right? What advice can you give the women viewers about becoming a woman power player in any industry, whether it's real estate or anything?
Yeah, I mean, any industry, right? So do your homework. I don't really see the lines. So first of all, I was an engineer in the 79.
What kind of engineer?
Industrial engineer. Okay. But I'd be in a room of 100, 150 people. I might be the only woman in the room. I worked on Wall Street, floor of 120 people, 5 women. I mean, so I never saw, and maybe credit to my parents, both academics. Or look at my sister, for her the same.
She works. I think I read she works for Michael Kors.
She was head of shoes, but now she's CEO of Kate Spade. So
CEO of Kate Spade.
So CEO.
Wow, your parents did really good.
Sorry, I probably put a shout out there, but so I think the trick is not to see boundaries, right? So I never saw the lines.
Got it.
You put up fences. Fences, they keep you in, I think, more than keep others out. So I never saw fences and lines. I think you just have to be really good at what you do.
Got it.
Do your homework. I think on Wall Street, the women, there was never mediocre women. They'd be kind of chewed up. Also, all the women that were there.
So you were a badass or you were out?
You were kind of out.
Got it.
That's just so. I think you just have to be really good at what you do. Do your homework. Try to be the smartest person in the room. Always ask questions. Always be humble. There's so much we don't know. Actually, for women, maybe sometimes I've been told Avra, don't be so humble. Tell people you've done 500,000 square feet of commercial and you've done X amount of transactions. I've probably done over 200 transactions. Tell people that, because they think that helps the women's, but I'm not big on. I think it's just you're sort of graded. I always think all the time, in most industries, and I look at it as, well, what did I last do? What did I last do? And just be motivated with really good intentions. And, that's it. Pretty simple. Just be really good.
So no lines, study, know your crap, and bust your ass and be passionate about what you do.
Yeah, and make it happen. Don't just talk about it.
Yeah.
Make it happen. I see a lot of people talk.
Sure.
And I think your work will speak for itself. I think the industry, I can tell you the men in this industry have been really, in Miami, they're my friends, David and Martin, so I partner with a lot of them.
You just partnered with David, correct?
I just partnered, but I've partnered with him before.
Okay. I want to get him on the show too.
Yes, I've been partnered with Arnaud Crescenti, one of my favorite guys. Partners with Matoni, and we're partners with Ricardo at Matoni Group. I have partners with the Mac Real Estate Group out in New York. Partners, so I think collaboration is also a lot of fun. I like working in bigger groups, creatively and business-wise. You learn. And so, and I look forward to every day.
Awesome. Last question, and then we're done, because we like to keep it short and sweet. I'll tell you about this pin. I see you keep looking at it.
You're a gator.
Well, I'm not a gator. So if anybody who's watched the show, they're going to know this. So I remember walking into a staff meeting once, and we were coming out with all these new things we were going to do within the brokerage, because we went from 4 years ago, we had 40 agents. Now we have 500 and something, without acquisitions. And I remember walking into a staff meeting, and I said, guys, if you're going to work with us and you're going to continue working for us, you need 3 things. You need alligator skin, because things are going to bounce off of you. You need roller skates, because we move fast. And you need coffee, because we don't sleep. And I remember writing it down right away, because I loved it. I just come up with it as I walked into the room. And I said, well, what can we do with it? And then I am a Gator fan. I didn't go to college, but my wife's a Gator and whatever. And then the University of Miami came out with the turnover chain. Mm-hmm. So I loved the reaction of these kids on defense getting the turnover chain, and I loved it, but I didn't like the chain. Just wasn't my style, and I didn't like that they were rewarding specific activity. So what we did was I ended up hiring that's when the light bulb went off. We hired a graphic artist to create our pin, which I'll try to zoom in if we can, and then we give it to people that embody our culture. And our culture is all about helping others and being a part of something bigger than just yourself.
Oh, I need a pin.
Huh? Everybody asks me for pins. You'd be shocked at how many people ask. I just, Craig, the owner of ISG. Yeah. I just gave it to him like 2 months ago. We've had him out for a while. Right. One of our agents, I got it, said, you're nobody in related ISG unless you have a pin. And we have our logo on it and all that stuff, and we even have the color one for the jersey.
With skates.
With the skate, oh yeah, he's on skates and all that. And this thing starts more conversations because either people look at it and they'll ask you what the pin is about,
right,
or they're just going to look at it. I keep seeing you look at it. Then if you're like me, who has no fear, I'll ask you straight up. Oh, I see you looking at my pin. You're like, yeah, whatever, you're a gator. Then I get into the story.
Well, I sit on the MRAT, University of Miami real estate board.
Okay.
I do a lot of mentoring and stuff like that. So I'm like, I think.
Yeah, no, this thing is
like
very, very powerful. I love it. Okay, so a book, podcast, or TED Talk recommendation, or three. Maybe there are people that do all three that you can give our audience.
So recently, somebody sent me actually something from YouTube that I really enjoyed. It was Jeff Bezos was interviewed by the Bush Foundation.
Okay.
So it was on YouTube. It was really great. Jeff Bezos, he's always about looking forward. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing for people in the development world, right? We tend to look back, right? We look at comps, we look at sales. So how do we look forward? So I really enjoyed that. So I would say that.
So I'm going to Google that and I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of good books. I just finished reading Michael Lewis's new book. It's called The Fifth Risk.
Okay.
That's kind of a little bit of a downer because it's kind of like, what are the consequences of having people in government that don't really understand the workings of government?
Sure.
So, and it sort of reminds you that we're just part of something bigger, and how much reliant we are on agencies for research and development and all. How did you think we got internet and all that? That all came from the Army or came from the government. So I think it's a reminder that we're part of a bigger thing that happens. And I think a classic that I've probably read like 3 times is like something like Siddhartha, where it's all about the journey. So I think I don't have time to read novels. I don't have time. So I'm either kind of one or the other, like kind of very pragmatic, and then there's always like, sort of like, what's the world up to? How can I feel better? How can I be more in touch? So I'm kind of on both ends.
Yeah, my wife and I, we just got back from Brazil, and we were like in the south part of Brazil. We took, 9-hour flight to Rio, then a 2-hour flight, then a 2-hour bus ride. And I remember we were in the bus, like a private bus, going to this house where we were staying. I looked at her, I'm like, man, this is a really big world. Like we're like nothing. We're like the drop in the ocean. It's crazy just how big.
But everything we do matters, and we can affect change. So the fact of feeling that feeling of being small, but doesn't mean that you can't do big things.
Oh, so, we're trying. Yeah. Absolutely.
So by the way, somebody recommended to me *Sapiens*. That's the book by my bed right now.
*Sapiens*. All right, there you go.
On the list.
Well, I want to show people what this looks like. Maybe we say goodbye now. I want to thank you guys for watching, but I want to show you this lounge because this is really cool. I got to stay away from some of the photos just because they're not. But if you want to see what it looks like, check out this. This is the lounge.
A lot of art. Near the Vagabond Sushi restaurant. This is the...
and that's Biscayne Boulevard right there.
Yes.
All right, you want to say bye?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.